You know, there are questions so big, so deep, that they completely mess with our minds. And without a doubt, one of those questions is this: if God created everything, then who created God? Maybe you've heard this before in conversations, at school, on the internet. Or maybe you've even caught yourself wondering about it, staring at the sky, feeling a little lost, trying to figure out where everything actually began. And hey, race, the truth. This question isn't just yours. It has haunted philosophers, scientists, theologians, and ordinary people for thousands of years. And honestly, it totally makes sense within human logic. After all, everything we know has a beginning, a starting point. So, would it be any different with God? Where did he come from? What was he before creation itself? Well, get ready, because the answer is so mind-blowing it might completely change how you understand God, the universe, and even your own life. What you're about to discover isn't just a theological explanation, it's a journey into the very mystery of existence. And by the end, your faith, your worldview, and your connection with the divine might never be the same again. You know, that type of question that seems simple, but the more you try to answer it, the more your head spins? Yeah. Asking where did God come from is exactly like that. It's one of those questions that transcends generations, cultures, and religions. From little kids to the greatest thinkers, everyone at some point has wrestled with this mystery. And let's be honest, it's impossible to hear that question without feeling a little shiver run down your spine. The truth is, this question shakes the very way we see the world. Because everything, absolutely everything we know, has a beginning, a middle, and an end. We're born, we grow, and eventually we die. Stars form and eventually burn out. Even the tallest mountains erode over time. So it's completely natural for our minds trapped inside the cycle of time and spacito try to apply the same logic to God. But hey, race, the game-changing realization: God isn't like anything he created. He doesn't exist inside time. He's not some being who appeared at some point in the past. Quite the opposite. When we ask who created God, we're actually using the wrong tool to measure something that doesn't fit into our limited human categories. And this is exactly where the answer begins, and it just might completely transform how you think about existence. When you start to truly understand who God is, you realize he's far beyond anything our minds can fully grasp. The Bible makes this crystal clear in passages like Psalm 9:2, "Before the mountains were born, or you brought forth the whole world. From everlasting to everlasting you are God." In other words, God has always existed with no beginning, no end, no limits. He is the eternal God, the uncreated one, who exists completely outside of time, space, and matter. Time itself is something he created, not something he's trapped inside. For our minds, wired to think in terms of cause and effect, that's nearly impossible to comprehend. But God isn't the result of a sequence of events. He is the starting point of everything. This is exactly what he revealed to Moses in Exodus 3:14, "I am who I am." That statement is incredibly powerful. It's not about the past or the future. It's about a being who simply is eternal, unchanging, absolute. He doesn't become anything. He doesn't change. Yes. Always has been and always will be. This same truth shows up in Isaiah 4:46, "I am the first, and I am the last. Apart from me there is no God." And it's confirmed again in Revelation 18 when God says, "I am the Alpha and the Omega, the beginning and the end." This is a clear reminder that, unlike us finite, fragile, temporary, God's divine nature is infinite, unchanging, and sovereign. Everything that exists depends on him. But he depends on absolutely nothing and no one. Honestly, nothing keeps philosophers and theologians more awake at night than trying to fit God inside the rules of human logic. Because while everything that exists needs a cause, God breaks that rule. He was never created. He has no origin. He didn't begin at some point in time. He simply exists by his very nature. This is what theology calls aseity, the self-existence of God. It means that God does not depend on anything to be who he is. He is the very source of all existence. Now brace yourself. Time itself only exists because God created it. which means God exists outside of time. He doesn't live inside yesterday, today, or tomorrow. While for us everything happens in sequence: past, present, future. For God, it's all one eternal now. Trying to wrap your head around this is like trying to fit the entire ocean into a teacup. It simply doesn't fit. Our brains were designed to function inside time, not outside of it. That's why, when someone asks where did God come from, it's actually a question that doesn't even make sense in the context of eternity. It's like asking what color is a sound. See? Those categories just don't overlap. The concept of a beginning only applies to things that exist inside time. And God isn't bound by time. It's like He's looking at the past, the present, and the future, all at once, as if it were a single photo spread out before His eyes. The Bible leaves no doubt when it comes to God's eternity and nature. When Moses asked who was speaking to him from the burning bush, God replied with one of the most powerful statements in all of Scripture: "I am who I am." Exodus 3:14. It's not a statement about a God who was or who will be, but about a God who simply is eternal, unchanging, absolute. A being whose existence depends on neither time, space, nor anything else that was created. And this revelation isn't limited to the Old Testament. In John 8:58, Jesus looks the Pharisees in the eye and says, "Before Abraham was born, I am." This statement absolutely enraged the religious leaders, because Jesus was declaring something shocking. He was identifying Himself as the eternal God. He wasn't just a messenger, a prophet, or a teacher. He was and is the very Word of God, the Logos, God incarnate, the one who has always existed. This truth is confirmed once again in Revelation, where God says, "I am the Alpha and the Omega, the beginning and the end." Revelation 18. This isn't just poetic language. This is a declaration of absolute sovereignty, of authority over everything that has ever existed, from the very beginning to the very end. It's proof that God doesn't fit into human categories of time and existence. He is eternal, infinite, transcendent, the creator of time, space, and everything that exists. The reality is, no matter how hard we try, understanding the eternity of God is something far beyond human comprehension. And this isn't just an opinion. The Bible itself acknowledges this limitation in Ecclesiastes 3:11. God has set eternity in the human heart, yet no one can fathom what God has done from beginning to end. In other words, God placed in us a longing to understand the infinite. But at the same time, He made it clear that our minds simply aren't built to fully grasp it. And it's not hard to understand why. Our entire existence revolves around time: waking up, going to sleep, working, being born, aging. Everything follows this timeline. Now imagine trying to understand a being who lives outside of time, who sees past, present, and future all at once. It's like asking a fish to understand what it's like to live outside of water. It's simply not part of its reality. That's exactly why this question often stirs up so much frustration. We crave answers that make sense within our mental boxes. But God doesn't fit into any box. He is the infinite God, the uncreated one whose divine nature is entirely different from anything we've ever known. And maybe, just maybe, that's the beauty of faith, accepting that there are mysteries that only make sense when we stop trying to explain and start to simply behold. When you truly grasp that God is eternal, unchanging, and sovereign, something clicks, and it changes everything. Understanding that we serve an eternal God who never fails, who never changes, brings a security that absolutely nothing else in this world can offer. After all, if He is the Alpha and the Omega, the beginning and the end, then nothing in your life takes Him by surprise. That chaos that feels out of control? To God, it's all perfectly under control. And that realization brings peace. It brings comfort. It brings confidence. Even more than that, understanding that all of creation depends on God, but God depends on nothing, puts us in our proper place. The truth is, we are fragile, temporary, finite, and yet, this infinite God has chosen to love us, care for us, and invite us into relationship with Him. And honestly, that changes how we see everything: ourselves, our purpose, and even how we face life's challenges. And hey, race the thing. When we contemplate the eternity of God, we can't help but be overwhelmed by a deep sense of reverence. It leads us to worship, to humility, to simply bow down, sometimes even in silence, just to say, Lord, you are God, and I worship you because you are, you were, and you always will be. But if you thought the eternity of God was already mind-blowing, hold on, because it gets even deeper when we look at John 1:13. There it says, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. This means that before the creation of time, space, and matter, the Word, the Logos, already existed. And who is this Word? None other than Jesus, the one who became flesh and dwelt among us, John 1:14. And it doesn't stop there. In Colossians 1:15, Paul declares the Son is the image of the invisible God, the firstborn over all creation. This means Jesus is the visible image of the invisible God. He is the perfect bridge between the eternal, infinite God and our finite, temporary reality. Through him, the one who was outside of time stepped into time. He entered history. He breathed our air. He walked among us, all to rescue us. And hey, race, the craziest part, the very Word who created everything became part of his own creation. John writes, through him all things were made, without him nothing was made that has been made. The one who created time chose to step into time. The one who had no beginning chose to be born. The unchanging God took on human form. This is so deep, so beyond anything we could ever fully grasp, that even the most brilliant theologians admit this is a mystery that can't be explained, only worshipped. By now, maybe you've realized that the answer to the question, where did God come from? That actually dismantles our entire human logic. God didn't come from anywhere. That because he simply is, he is the eternal God, the uncreated one, the Alpha and the Omega, the one who exists outside of time and space and sustains all things by his sovereign power. He has no beginning, that he has no end, and that's not a flaw in our understanding. It's proof that he is God. And we are his creation. And honestly, realizing this changes absolutely everything. When you understand that you serve a God who isn't limited, who doesn't change, who is always in control, your faith gains a foundation that no storm can shake. Knowing that God doesn't depend on anything, but everything depends on him. That brings a clarity that heals anxiety, fear, and insecurity. Because our Creator isn't just powerful, he is absolute. And you know what? This is just the beginning. Because if God truly is eternal, infinite, and sovereign, that's not just some distant theological concept. It has everything to do with you. With your story. With your purpose. And with your journey here on earth. And it's exactly how this divine reality connects with your life. That we're going to keep talking about from now on. So get ready. Because what's coming next will shake not only your mind, but your heart. Look. If there's one thing that's become clear after everything we've talked about, it's that this question, where did God come from, reveals way more about the limits of our own minds than it does about God himself. It's a question that works perfectly within our universe, within the boundaries of time. But when we try to apply that same logic to the creator of time, space, and matter, the whole thing collapses. God didn't come from anywhere. God simply is. He always was. He always will be. From the beginning, it's clear that this isn't just a modern doubt. Quite the opposite. It's a question that has crossed centuries, generations, cultures, and religions. Ordinary people, thinkers, theologians, scientists, everyone at some point stares into this abyss of thought. And why? Because we as humans are finite, temporary, made of matter, bound by the ticking clock of existence. Everything we know has a beginning, a middle, and an end. We're born. We grow. We age. And eventually, we pass away. But when we look at God, the rules change. God wasn't created. God didn't start. God didn't appear. God is self-existent. He depends on nothing and no one. And that's why this question, who created God, makes absolutely no sense in the context of eternity. It's like asking, how many gallons of water fit in a timeline? Or what's the weight of a thought? These are just categories that don't apply. And the Bible makes this stunningly clear in both powerful and poetic ways. From everlasting to everlasting, you are God. Psalm 9:02. I am the first and I am the last. Apart from me there is no God. Isaiah 4:46. And maybe the most jaw-dropping of all, I am who I am. Exodus 3:14. A declaration so deep, so absolute. It doesn't even fit within the limits of human language. It's God saying, I simply am. I don't depend on time, space, matter, or anything created. I exist because I am God. And this revelation reaches its ultimate climax when we look at Jesus. In John 8:58, he says, before Abraham was born, I am. This isn't just a theological statement, this is Jesus making it absolutely clear that he is the very eternal God. The one who existed before everything, before time, before matter, before history. The same God who created time, stepped into time. The one who existed outside of space, took on form, flesh, body. The eternal Word became flesh and lived among us. John 1:14. And friend, that changes everything. Because if God is eternal, infinite, unchanging, sovereign, that's not just a cold theological fact. It radically transforms how we live. It means you have never been and will never be outside of His care, His attention, or His sovereignty. While you're worried about tomorrow, God's already seen it. While you're crying over the past, God already sees the purpose in it. He's not stuck in your yesterday. He's not limited to your today. And He's certainly not anxious about your tomorrow. God is already in all of them at the same time. And honestly, if that doesn't bring peace to your heart, then nothing in this world ever will. Knowing that the God who loves you is the one who never changes, who never fails, who has no beginning and no end, changes absolutely everything about how you face life, struggles, fears, and pain. You are not alone. You never were. The eternal God walks with you. The Alpha and the Omega, the beginning and the end, the unchanging God, the I am, the one who existed before the universe, and will exist beyond everything, knows you, sees you, loves you, and sustains you. So, if there's one thing this reflection should stir in you, it's not confusion or fear or despair. It should lead to reverence, to worship, to surrender, to looking up to the heavens and even without fully understanding saying with all your heart, God, I acknowledge you, I worship you, and I surrender to your sovereignty, your eternity, and your love. Let me ask you something. If this eternal God is for you, who can be against you? If He has no beginning and no end, if He never changes, if He loves you, why would you keep living as a prisoner of fear, anxiety, or doubt? Isn't it time to finally surrender your life, your plans, and your future into the hands of the one who created time itself? And hey, if this message spoke to your heart, don't leave without subscribing to this channel. Hit that notification bell, because there's so much more coming your way. Content that won't just feed your faith, but will help you see God in ways you may have never seen before. May the eternal God, the sovereign, the unchanging one, the Alpha and the Omega, the great I am, bless you, strengthen you, and fill you with peace. I'll see you in the next video. God bless you.